مش شايف والله.
احنا اي حاجه هتبقى عند حضرتك هنشوفها،
أنا
فممكن
مهم.
قلب بس يمين او شمال هتظهر. يعني قلب بس الشاشه بتاعت الزوم، معلش.
ما فيش.
هو الباوربوينت واضح قدامنا على فكره. لو حضرتك عاوز تقفل الشير وتعمل شير تاني مفيش مشكله.
أفضل 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 عشان دي والله.
اه، مفيش مشكله.
مم. كده يا دكتور واضح عندك؟
اه كده واضح. ممكن اقلب يمين وشمال يا فندم؟
ها يس.
تمام.
تمام
تمام.
تغير.
أوكي.
تمام يا فندم، تمام. طيب
تمام.
انا هبدأ دلوقتي. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم زملائنا الاعزاء. النهارده ان شاء الله بنستكمل مع حضراتكم الليالي الرمضانيه المباركه، بالتعاون مع المؤسسه المصريه لاطباء اطفال مصر. يسعدنا ويشرفنا ان يكون النهارده معانا الضيف العزيز من ليبيا، استاذ الدكتور عبد اللطيف النينة، استاذ طب الاطفال وحديث الولاده في جامعه درنا بليبيا. أهلا وسهلا بحضرتك، وبداية سعيدة للتعاون العلمي مع السادة الأساتذة أطباء الأطفال في ليبيا. أهلا وسهلا بحضرتك.
أهلا وسهلا أهلا وسهلا. آه.
ويسعدني برضو أقدم دكتورة هاجر المسماري، استشاري طب الأطفال بليبيا. دكتورة هاجر هتكون الكوردينيتور أو المودريتور لليوم العلمي. أهلا دكتورة هاجر. اتفضلي قدمي دكتور عبد اللطيف، وتفضل دكتور عبد اللطيف.
أهلا دكتور.
أهلا وسهلا.
آه، في البداية بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته جميعا. يسعدني أن أرحب بكم جميعا في هذا اللقاء العلمي ضمن فعاليات الإكسبرت سامنت 2026 ويف 4. في البداية أتقدم بخالص الشكر والتقدير إلى المؤسسة المصرية لأطباء أطفال مصر على جهودهم الكبيرة في تنظيم اللقاءات العلمية التي تجمع أطباء الأطفال من مختلف الدول العربية لتبادل الخبرات والمعرفة. كما أتقدم بجزيل الشكر والتقدير إلى الدكتور بهاء الشيخ رئيس المؤسسة المصرية لأطباء الأطفال مصر، والدكتور محمد هلال نائب رئيس المؤسسة المصرية لأطباء أطفال مصر، والدكتورة عايدة حيدر منسق النشاط العلمي العربي، على دعمهم وجهودهم في إنجاح هذه الفعاليات العلمية. ونحب نذكركم بأن هذا العمل هو صدقة جارية على روح الأستاذ الدكتور ثروت دراز رحمه الله، سائلين الله أن يتقبل ما قدمه من علم وعمل وفي ميزان حسناته يا رب. يسعدنا اليوم أن نستضيف الأستاذ الدكتور عبد اللطيف منينة، من القامات العلمية الكبيرة جدا في طب الأطفال في ليبيا، أستاذ طب الأطفال بجامعة درنا، واستشاري طب الأطفال بمستشفى الوحدة التعليمي. سيقدم لنا محاضرة قيمة بعنوان The Remarkable Properties of Lactoferrin in Human Breast Milk. نتمنى لكم جميعا لقاء علمي ممتع ومفيد، ونترك لك الوقت دكتورنا، أن نستفيد من خبرة حضرتك في المجال طب الأطفال.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. بارك الله فيك دكتور هاجر. أولا نحب نشكر من كان سبب في وجودي مع هذه القامات العلمية من المؤسسة المصرية لأطباء أطفال مصر، على رأسهم الأستاذ الدكتور بهاء الشيخ، الدكتور محمد هلال، كذلك دكتورتنا الفاضلة دكتورة هاجر المسماري، وكذلك منسق النشاط العربي دكتورة عايدة حيدر. يعني thank you to give me the chance to be among those eminent speakers. نتمنى أن تكون المحاضرة خفيفة and easy to digest. أنا اخترت أن نحكي في هذا الموضوع because of my keen interest to breast milk and breastfeeding. Actually, I'm consultant neonatologist, but with a great interest and I'm ILCA certified. I attend the course of LCC course by the Lactation Consultant Association, and proud Danny to be يعني one of the student يعني اللي خضوا هذه الشهادة على يدين ناس أفاضل، كان لهم الفضل الكبير، منهم الأستاذ الدكتور أمل طويل. يعني بداية يقول الحق عز وجل في محكم آياته في سورة الذاريات: وفي الأرض آيات للموقنين وفي أنفسكم أفلا تبصرون. هذه دعوة من الحق عز وجل للتدبر في النفس البشرية، واخترت جزئية بسيطة من جزئيات حليب الأم اللي تكون إن شاء الله بعد المحاضرة يعني نظهر بفائدة كبيرة ودلالة عظيمة على عظمة الخالق عز وجل. My learning objectives يعني by the end of this presentation يعني all the participants supposed to able to understand the multifunctional properties of the lactoferrin human breast milk. I'm focusing on other functions apart from the iron chelating properties of the lactoferrin. I passed in a quick through the composition of breast milk, and this is the entrance of my talk, and talk about the lactoferrin structure and the biochemical structure and the characterization pattern and some of the properties of this glycoprotein, and also talk about some of the mechanism of action of this glycoprotein, including the antibacterial, antiviral, anti-inflammatory, and immunomodulatory mechanisms. By the end of the talk, inshallah, we'll evaluate the clinical evidence supporting the lactoferrin supplementation in preterm and very low preterm, including the role or in necrotizing enterocolitis and prevention and neurodevelopmental function of this glycoprotein. As we know all, human breast milk contain over 200 distinct bioactive components and more. Every day there is a new component discovered and new function added to this bioactive component of this golden liquid, which cannot be replicated in any formula and will not, because containing life elements ولو اجتمعوا له. يعني talk about some of the macronutrient of a breast milk, the main component or the trio of macro component of this, including the fat, protein, and the carbohydrate. As we know, the component and the amount of the fat or lipid is about 3.5 to 4.5 gram per 100 ml, and it's usually act as the main source of calories, about 50% of the calories, and it's rich with polysaturated, long-chain polysaturated fatty acids, and including DHA and arachidonic acid, which are critical for brain development and retinal development as well. For the protein content of a breast milk, actually the amount is around 0.9 to 1.5, 0.2 gram per 100 ml, and mainly it's in whey type, which is easy to digest if compared with the formula and cow milk, which mainly containing casein. Okay. The proteins, including the alpha lactoalbumin, the lactoferrin secretory, IgA, and other immunoglobulins, which have another function rather than the nutritional value. The carbohydrate as macronutrient usually it's count about 6.5 to 7.5 gram per 100 ml, and with lactose dominant, and human milk containing what's called the HMOs. This the human milk oligosaccharides, which have a great value, now discovered more than 100, 200, with its unique structure and work as a prebiotic for beneficial bacteria, and have many other anti-allergic property, and also enhance immune mechanism and synergistic action with other bioactive component of the breast milk. For the macronutrient, breast milk containing fat-soluble vitamin. All the fat-soluble vitamin are there. In spite that the vitamin D, notably, it is a little bit low. This is why recommendation of the supplement of vitamin D by WHO and the American Academy of Pediatrics since early neonatal period. For the water-soluble vitamin, B vitamins also, and C, and this is depend on closely related to maternal supplementation and maternal dietary intake as well. For the key minerals, calcium and phosphorus which support the skeletal development. It's there abundant in breast milk and with great bioavailability as well. And the iron content, despite it's low in comparing with formula, but it's bioavailable more than 50% absorbed if you compare 10% from the formula. Trace element breast milk containing element, including the great trace element, and which value an immunomodulatory effect of zinc, iodine, selenium, copper, and of course the iodine, which particularly sensitive to maternal thyroid status and the intake as well. Come crossing quick for the immunological component. Breast milk containing a living immunological shield. It is work as the shield. يعني كأن درع حماية يحتوي على كثير من الأشياء الحية in addition to the other immunoglobulins and the lactoferrins and many others, as you will see, which work in synergistic and harmonical way. Secretory IgA, نحن الحمد لله رب العالمين نحن ال IgA cannot be across the placenta because it's large molecular weight. لكن سبحان الخالق عز وجل, it's added and supplied to secretory bees, and it's abundant in the colostrum in the first few days because it's great work in maintaining the integrity and protect against GIT and respiratory infection as well. Lysozyme, which is a great role, works synergistically with lactoferrin and the others. Its enzyme disturb the bacterial wall is available there. And in addition to many other enzymes like the defensin and many others. Lactoferrins, as we'll talk today about this, I'll talk in detail, I'll pass it. And now, in addition to that, we have to complement with a great role of opsonization and coating the organism and assisting the lactoferrin for recognition of the bacteria and help in the process of phagocytosis after recognition of the microbial organism. Breast milk containing a lot of white blood cells, including the predominantly the macrophages, T lymphocyte, and natural killer cells and neutrophils with great action in phagocytosis. And you see in detail what's the role of those in addition to the work of the lactoferrin. Contain cytokines and chemokines, and of course, contain almost all those important interleukins, the pro-inflammatory markers, the interleukin 6 and 10 and 1, tumor necrosis factors, and transforming growth factors, and many others, okay, which play a role in immunomodulatory and anti-inflammatory effect as well. Breast milk contains bioactive molecules. It's beyond the nutrition and immunity, containing hormones, the leptin, adiponectin, and insulin, and melatonin, oxytocin, and many other hormones. It's all available and have great work, especially in analgesia during the neonatal pain, containing a growth factor, epithelial growth factor, insulin-like growth factors, and the transforming growth factor, tumor necrosis factor, which have a great role in maintaining the repairing the mucosal surfaces of the intestine as well as of the bronchial tree. Contain a lot of enzyme. One of them is a famous digestive enzyme which help in digestion of the fat. It's called the bile salt stimulating lipase, and in addition to the lysozyme, as I mentioned before. Breast milk containing the microRNA, with sexomer microRNA, which is responsible for the gene expression in infant tissue, in addition to stem cells, and which give the genetic imprint. This is why breast milk is species specific and individualized as well, different from mom to mom. Okay. Lastly, at through the microbiome connection, breast milk, it is not totally sterile, containing some of the beneficial bacteria. Nowadays, itself can harbors about 200 to 600, and some references, they say up to 700 bacterial species, including the Lactobacillus staphylococcus, bifidobacterium, which is transferred through a pathway called the internal memory pathway, reflecting the maternal immunity and the maternal bacteria, important beneficial bacteria, which are responsible for the seeding on the infant gut duct directly and prevent the microbiome diversity. And this is responsible for shaping the immune system microbiome even during later stages of childhood and even adulthood. Okay. containing prebiotics, HMOs, as I mentioned, with great benefit to beneficial bacteria. The famous one is the Bifidum bacterium, as well as a probiotic, as I mentioned, those beneficial bacteria containing hundreds of those. And the word symbiotic means combine the prebiotic and probiotic action synergistically to colonize the duct with beneficial and important bacteria. Long-term impact دي will colonize. So the mom الأم تشكل نوع الميكروبات نقولوا نحن النافعة داخل جسم ابنها النيونيت since early neonatal period، وبالتالي عندها remote effect for preventing allergy. And this is known in a lot of big studies for asthma protection up to 10 years, and the obesity management, inflammatory bowel disease reduction, and autoimmune disease in later life as well. Now, alhamdulillah, now we reach and we start our topic for today, talk about the remarkable properties of lactoferrin. I used to call it the secrets of lactoferrin. So, first of all, what's the lactoferrin? Lactoferrin is very tiny component of a breast milk. It's multifunctional glycoprotein and found abundantly in breast milk. Present خمس تقريبا 15 to 20% of the total protein present in breast milk, and this is why it's important protein, as we'll see why it is in high concentration, such that because it's very important and because of its great functions as well. In addition to breast milk, which lactoferrin can appear in other body fluid, including the saliva, tears, nasal secretion, urine biles, and many other biological fluids. Okay, it's about 80 kilodalton iron binding glycoprotein. As I mentioned, it is consisting about 15 to 20% of the total protein content of a human milk. First isolated and known it's 1939 by sensor, as I see the historical. Next slide, inshallah. It was emerged the critical component in the first defense line. It's unique because high affinity to the ferric ion, and because it is belong to the transferrin family, but it is exceeding the capacity or the ability for iron binding, exceeding transferrin by more than 250 times. It's a great affinity to iron, okay, and have a great remarkable stability against proteolysis by proteolytic enzyme, and this is because of the glycan base which attached to the N-terminal of the molecule of the lactoferrin. Interestingly, the concentration of the lactoferrin and the liquid gold, the cholesterol, in first 3 to 4 days is 7 grams per liter. And this is reduced by 1 to 4 grams in mature milk after the week 3, actually. Okay, so this is reflect the importance of this glycoprotein in early neonatal period, as we will see, inshallah, in the coming slide. Lactoferrin multifunction properties extend beyond nutrition and have great effect as immunomodulator and anti-inflammatory. So, if we talk about the biochemical structure of and the properties of lactoferrin, usually it's a single chain polypeptide with 2 loops, N and C loops, containing the iron binding site, okay, with a greater and exceptional affinity to the iron absorption and binding. And present in 2 forms. The iron-free form is called the apolactoferrin, and the iron-bounded form is called holylactoferrin, and this is the lactoferrin iron complex, and have found to have great antibacterial bactericidal activity through lysis of the wall of the microbes as well. Glycosylation in the end-linked glycan have this responsible for the stability of the molecule against proteolysis, as well as affect the bioactivity through receptor interaction, and have a great role and major role in immune modulation properties of the lactoferrin. So, if we pass through the historical perspective discovery early in 1939 by Sersen, if I say the name by pronounce it right, I don't know the nationality of the scientist. Call it the red protein because characteristic pink hue when bounded to iron. Was called the red protein. In 1960, the first time Johnson coined the term lactoferrin and isolated from human and bovine milk and established his relationship to transferrin family. Okay. In 1980, initial antimicrobial properties appear and by Pollen and colleague and they demonstrate the inhibitory effect against E. coli and growth in infant gut. Since 1990s until now, the expanded understanding of the immunomodulatory function of the recombinant production method for the glycoprotein, and every time they discover a new function and new application to this glycoprotein, as we'll see inshallah. So, talking a brief about the antimicrobial properties, first of all, talk about the most important, its role through protection against bacteria. Its work either directly as lactoferrin glycoprotein or by indirect way as for example, stimulating other cells and other immune modulator to work against the mechanism. Okay. First of all, it's responsible for what's called the iron sequestration, deprive the environment and prevent the growth of pathological bacteria which are independent. And this is called the bacteriostatic environment. So prevent the growth of those bacteria and direct the iron toward the beneficial bacteria, especially the bifidobacterium and the lactobacillus. Second, there is a metabolite called the lactoferrin. In spite it's resistant to the proteolysis by proteolytic cleavage, but some of this glycoprotein appear as a metabolite called the lactoferrin. And in addition to it is a proteolytic protein hormone protein enzymes act in the lactoferrin to produce this metabolite. Like in spite of that, it is still bioactive component and disturb the cell wall of the bacteria. يعني سبحان الله هو كحامل المسك هو كحامل المسك حتى الميتابولايت بتاعه هو ينفع حتى الميتابولايت بتاعه still having antibacterial activity and causes lysis and death of the many of the bacterial organisms. Another action for the lactoferrin, and it's a very important action, actually it's called disturbing the biofilm and prevent the biofilm formation. Biofilm is a community of organisms, especially both bacteria and the fungal, adherent to the wall of the enterocyte especially and bronchial mucosa as well, calling a community of organisms coated to be hidden from and difficult to be detected by immune system and difficult as well to be destroyed by antimicrobial. The work of the lactoferrin here disturb the formation and of the biofilm and disturb the wall and protected, make the organism, for example, easy to be recognizable by the immune system and easy to be worked on by antimicrobial treatment. This clinical effects of the lactoferrin is very important, especially in the first few days during the early neonatal period, and it's important against the E. coli, staph, streptococcus, and candida infection and some other fungal infection as well. Come to the viral infection, have a great effect against viral infection, of course, working synergism with many other bioactive components like the interferon and the natural killer cells to compete the virus and to act against the virus. So the great role of this lactoferrin prevent the entry of the virus inside the cell. As we know, for the virus to replicate, it should be intracellular. So the lactoferrin work by two mechanisms, either combined to the receptor which used by the viruses for entering the cell, okay, prevent the virus from this chance, or work as what's called the decoy receptor هو مؤهل human HMOs. هذين الديكوي ريسبتور هو ريسبتور مخادع يعطي نفس الشكل بحيث neutralize the virus activity, prevent him. So have two ways, either to bind directly to the enterocyte receptors which needed by the viruses, prevent the viruses to bind, or make it as decoy receptor and neutralize the virus away till other antiviral activity by other particle in breast milk like the interferon and the natural killers can work by phagocytosis and the other. And this mechanism also found to be effective in many other viruses like respiratory syncytial virus, influenza viruses, and rotaviruses, and even in HIV. The famous one is the effect against COVID-19. And during the COVID era, they found the lactoferrin supplementation may found to have play a role in spite of a lot of studies. It's not recommended by many, but a lot of study evidence-based found have a great role as adjunctive therapy in addition to the anti-COVID antiviral drug, and found the effect of lactoferrin during COVID era. It found it to bind to what's called the ACE2 receptor, which used by SARS-CoV-2 viruses for entering the cell and work as decoy receptor as well, and have a great effect in, as immunomodulator effect, reduce the cytokine storms in addition to repairing and have a great effect in the integrity of the intestinal as well as respiratory mucous membrane. We'll see later إن شاء الله. In addition of that هو مش فقط البكتيريا والفيروس، لا هو سبحان الله يعني have antifungal activity and antiparasitic as well. The antifungal activity found that either by disturbing the biofilm, as I mentioned before, and helping the antifungal drug working يعني in synergistic effect and with the conventional antifungal drug, especially against the Candida albicans. Other thing, the antiparasitic. Lactoferrin found to be effective against many parasites like the Giardia lamblia, Amoeba histolytica, and the Cryptosporidium parvum, which are responsible for the early disease in infant, either by sequestration of the iron and by disturbing the membrane of those microbes. Lactoferrin have again immunomodulatory function supporting the infant immunity, especially during the critical immunomodulator, the variable neonatal period is very important period where the infant immunity is still thriving and still immature. Okay, have a great role in lymphocyte maturation and help the B lymphocyte to produce specific antigen antibodies against specific antigen, and help also in maturation in T lymphocytes. Have a phagocytic enhancement activity, and this is help in coating the organism by a condition called the opsonization, in addition to the complement, and call for help by the other cells like neutrophils, natural killer cells, and help for macrophages as well, and help for phagocytosis. Another great role in the cytokine and complement regulation, and this is important. Okay, cytokine it's a great role in up and down regulate the cytokines, especially down regulate the interleukin 6 and 10, a tumor necrosis factor, and up regulate the interleukin 10, and down regulate 6 and 1. And this is to prevent what's called the cytokine storms over stimulation of the immune system, and make it work beautifully as anti-inflammatory action only, away from destruction of the tiny thriving tissue of the newly-born child. So immunomodulatory function either by a neutrophil activation and help for neutrophil aggregation and adhesion and phagocytosis. And I mentioned another action for him also by increasing natural killer cell cytotoxicity and cytokine production, and again influence the T cell maturation and differentiation, and cytokine modulation, as I mentioned, reducing 6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha and interleukin 1 beta and increasing the interleukin 10. Interestingly, that the lactoferrin, some of the neutrophils and other cells in the human body contain granules containing those containing lactoferrin, which release in the presence of an invasion by microbes. Okay. Uh, Once released by neutrophil itself, it will coat and call for help and make it ready, make the microbes ready for phagocytosis by the macrophages and neutrophils. Okay, so released by neutrophils to take an action, either disturb the cell wall itself by the lactoferrin, and some organisms are resistant to that, so works synergistically by increasing or help take the help of other uh, cells like the neutrophils, macrophages, and natural killer cells. One thing more, once coated, the microbes stimulate the neutrophils and other natural killer cells to produce what's a condition called the oxidative burst through production of a substance called the ROS or reactive oxygen species, which is responsible for the lysis of the cell wall of the microorganism. One thing more, again, lactoferrin is compete what's called the microbial siderophores, which released by the last defense line microorganism for getting the iron. And this bacteria siderophores have a great affinity to iron, just to as last defense line to scavenging the iron from the environment. In spite of a great affinity of microbial siderophore to the iron, still the lactoferrin can compete and beat those siderophores. So it's a great affinity, can overcome any trial for creating the iron, and he is the king of the iron as iron chelator as well. So this is the rule in early neonatal period, and this is why prevent the excessive inflammatory, which could cause the damage of the thriving tiny tissue, but in addition can manifest it as anti-inflammatory action, which can be safe to the child tissue, and it's harmful to the organisms and can destroy the organism only. If we can talk about the role of gut health microbiomes, so we'll see. Lactoferrin selectively promote the growth of beneficial bacteria, as I mentioned, Bifidobacterium lactobacillus, through providing the leukocyte, the HMOs, which serve as a prebiotic, by sparing this for the beneficial organism and prevent the harmful bacteria from utilizing this bacteria food, if it is right, this term. So, containing also peptide that can stimulate the growth of commensal bacteria and selectively inhibit the pathological bacteria from a growth. A lot of study shows that a high proportion of the Bifidum bacterium, up to 90% in exclusive breastfeed baby if compared with the formula feed, and it persists to adulthood. This is why I say it's shaping the microbiome and prevent the microbiome diversity if given exclusively breastfeeding in the first 6 months of life. Now summarize the anti-inflammatory properties and how can this lactoferrin protect against necrotizing enterocolitis. So, because it can maintain the integrity of the intestinal barrier and also help to repair the damaged cell walls or enterocyte walls by the organism. Also, it can promote the tight junction protein expression and prevent or reducing the permeability to the bacteria and the bacterial translocation and minimize the systemic inflammation. Reduce the colonization by the enteropathic bacteria, and this is important by the sequestration of the iron and direct effect on the microorganism as I mentioned. And also downregulate and suppress the pro-inflammatory cytokine production as make it as anti-inflammatory, but prevent the overstimulation of the immune response. So there is meta-analysis randomized control study suggests that if those tiny baby less than 1,500 grams supplied by lactoferrin found this is protective and minimize the occurrence of necrotizing keratoconus by 50% and even more. Lactoferrin have another role in neurodevelopmental and have potential impact in brain development. How this is occur? Okay, contribute for iron delivery to the brain. They found that the blood-brain barrier express lactoferrin receptor. Okay, and this is why facilitate the targeted iron transport and prevent the oxidative effect of the free iron, because the free iron can be work as free radicals as well and can cause damage. But because of the tight junction of the lactoferrin to the iron, it can be utilized by the blood-brain barrier receptors and prevent the free iron bad effect on the blood-brain barrier as well as. A neuroprotection mechanism, this is through reducing the oxidative stress and neuroinflammatory development in neural tissue, especially those, they are very tiny in the first 2 years of life. And it's help again in myelination in oligodendrocyte, especially during this tiny babies in the very critical period of life. Animal studies and recently even in a human, they found that can improve the cognitive function outcome and brain development, and whether this is alone or in conjunction with other bioactive component of breast milk and other substance appear like the long chain polysaturated fatty acid, the HMOs, and the acid, but it's still they are hypothesized that and have a great role in neurodevelopment. And the study, the IQ of those baby who were exclusive breastfed for 36 months, they found it contain maybe 10 to 15 points higher than those who have formula feed. And this is evidence-based as well. So for neural cell proliferation, lactoferrin promote the neural stem proliferation and differentiation, myelination process, as I mentioned, and neuroprotection as prevent the free iron-mediated oxidative damage and supplying the brain with needed iron for DNA synthesis and for metabolism as well. And this is what I mentioned, the study whether this hypothesized this one of the key contributing factor in improving the cognitive outcome in those early breastfed baby and exclusively. Okay, the level of the lactoferrin or concentration, it is not constant and it's differ and affected by many factors. They found it higher, as I mentioned, in cholesterol because its main job, as I mentioned before, transitional milk is more than the mature milk and preterm baby than the term baby. And even if the mom have infection, mastitis, the level of those minor infection, the level of lactoferrin increase because it's a great ability in competing and fighting the microorganism, either bacterial, viral, fungal, or protozoal. So this is gestational age impact, preterm milk containing higher lactoferrin level. They have diurnal variation, especially in nighttime milk by 10 to 4 a.m. containing, and this is maybe enhance the protection during night feeds. Maternal function, maternal nutrition, stress, infectious status, it can affect the level of the lactoferrin, and this is why the baby aren't safe even if the mom have mastitis. So don't worry, you can breastfeed your baby, endure some pain, and you will be okay, mom. Okay. Now this table, in a brief, it can and explain what's the difference and between the human milk, bovine milk, and standard formula. I'm talking here about the glycosylation better. See, it's complex, very complex and highly silated comparing to standardized formula absence, and this is responsible for the stability against proteolytic enzyme stability and immunomodulator function and many others. And here, because of the glycosylation pattern, have resistant to proteolysis and have bioactivity, which maximum if you compare it with the other bovine or standardized formula. So, glycosylation pattern is unique and special and maybe the cornerstone of the action of the lactoferrin. A small piece added to the N-terminal of the loops of lactoferrin make all of that changes. Subhanallah, Ahsan al-Khaliqeen. Okay, now come to talk about the clinical application and supplementation or in preterm baby. Many trials and there are many evidence-based clinical trials found that reduce the late onset sepsis, okay, by 50% and 60% necrotizing enterocolysis reduction and 40% reduce the fungal invasion infection, especially in very tiny baby, okay, and have potential improvement in neurodevelopment outcome and follow up in remote effect as well as. The problem that whether to supply or not supply. Now, some of the schools still not recommend this routine use of lactoferrin because need to be studied. You don't know which level letter of study supporting the effect. And many trials in states and European Union found the effective way, but still the problem, the dose, whether this presumed to be about 50 to 200 milligram per day for infant and tiny baby. And this trial for this dose, but no clear evidence base for the dose till now. Okay, and for the adult, even given as supplement, the dose can reach between the 100 to 1000 and even more, and given in different and different ways, either capsule or liquid or powder or tablet and or caplet as well. Still the clear regime of doses is still not well established. This is why some were against the routine recommendation of this, and despite the promising result after the controlled trial, randomized controlled study, and many other studies. There is a big study in UK on about 2,203 very preterm baby suggested that the safety and highlight the need for optimization, dosing, and timing. Like, and still, it is not fixed recommendation. Okay, so the current recommendation, while it is promising, current evidence does not yet support the routine supplementation outside the clinical trial. So nobody can depend on this. No guidelines till now. So, if we are talking about the future directional therapeutic potential beyond infancy, whether lactoferrin can help other age group, we'll see. Found to be a great role in antibiotic-resistant infection, and a great role in some viruses, including the COVID-19, as I mentioned, the mechanism. Have a great role as well, promising result in inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel, and peptic ulcer, H. pylori infection, and microbiome through the microbiome modulation and anti-inflammatory effect. Have rule nowadays that a lot of trial for studies for the neuroprotective effect modules, especially in Alzheimer and Parkinsonism. Through the iron regulation and anti-inflammatory and immune modulator. In cancer research, they found this have anti-carcinogenic properties through inducing the apoptosis, which is called the programmed cell death induction, and cell cycle regulation, and prevention and minimize the size of the tumor, especially the colorectal cancer. And this found because it's prevent the neoangiogenesis and growth and metastasis of the tumor cancer. In addition, it's used as eye drops post-surgery and used for dental care, prevent dental break by competing what's called the bacteria, streptococcal mutants, and prevent the gingivitis as well. And found a great role in preventing osteoporosis is given. Rheumatoid arthritis have a role in rheumatoid through its immunomodulatory effects, and many other, especially in wound healing, resistant wound healing, because it's effective. Many trial and many study done in this field, as well as in iron refractory anemia. In spite, they say that if you supply iron supplement and you give lactoferrin, the lactoferrin will take the iron and lead to anemia. This is what's seen, but actually in the clinical ground, they found that in spite it binding to the iron, it's transporting the iron to the targeted organ and uh, help in preventing the iron deficiency anemia as well. So the current challenge, usually the cost-effective production in large amount for the human lactoferrin through the genetic engineering, and the another challenges for the effective and safety of the doses for different age group or during pregnancy. Before going to the last slide, I'll talk in brief for 1 minute about the synthesis, the production, the action, and the degradation. They found that the mechanism is very complex, very complex. Lactoferrin production, synthesis, action, and degradation belong to many mechanism. First of all, depend on the genetic expression through the production of the lactoferrin regulated at genetic levels. So lactoferrin gene transcribed into the messenger RNA when translated into the lactoferrin protein. So gene expression, and this depend on the situation where the baby in. Okay. So another rule for hormonal regulation rule, and they found that they have a great role. For example, during the later pregnancies and during lactation, the estrogen and the prolactin have upgrade the level of the lactoferrin, work beautifully in that and increase the level because it's needed. Okay, and at cellular level as well as it's release, as I mentioned, by granules or store granules, especially neutrophils and others. One thing more, it can be receptor mediated endocytosis. This complex enter the cells by receptor mediated endocytosis, whether it's used to utilize the iron and recycling the protein as well. And there is some cytokines up-regulate the lactoferrin level in the presence of infection. And in spite of that, ان the lactoferrin it will down regulate them. يعني سبحان الله هن زيد الانتاج بتاعها وهو down regulate them just to take the benefit of those. كأن يعني تنتج في شيء ينقصها. فهذه حكمة الله، كل شيء بقدر يعني. Lastly, I talked about the key take-home message. So far beyond the nutrition, I think by the end of this talk, lactoferrin property extend well beyond mere nutrition. So have a great role in neurological support, developmental protection, and cannot be and remain unmatched by any other synthetic alternatives. Irreplaceable bioformula. So even if the lactoferrin nowadays added to many formulas, but it can work as antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, but the synergism and the harmonical way, whether the added lactoferrin can work as the natural lactoferrin in the individual. So we don't know the synergism with others, a bioactive component, whether can be achieved by adding artificial lactoferrin to the formula, or this is only specific for the natural lactoferrin. And I think this is the one of many studies supporting that. Long-term programming benefit extend beyond immediate and neonatal protection, have program later future, like including the microbe establishment, and it will add protection against allergy, autoimmune disease, and many other, improve the neurocognitive development as well. Synergistic component lactoferrin, this is the most important thing, represents just one of more than 200 bioactive component working synergistically. سبحان الله رب العالمين، يعني أكثر من 200 bioactive component نحن اخترنا نحكي على واحد منهن. And I think each of them containing many and many other finding. لكن how they can work by this harmonical، لا أحد يتعدى على أحد أيضا، يعني ما يجيش منها إلا الخير فقط يعني. فيعني هذه حكمة الخالق القادر، سبحان الله رب العالمين. Lastly, and talk about the clinical implications. Okay, by the end of the talk, I think this will advocate for breastfeeding reinforcement, breastfeeding support for every clinical touch point, and prioritize mother-own milk for preterm baby, cause the protection against necrotizing enterocolitis as well as the bronchopulmonary dysplasia as well. This is the one. For them, they can have donor milk, but for us, because Islamic region, in spite of some Gulf countries nowadays, they have fatwa for using that by special condition. I'm not talking, it's not the area for this talk, using the donor human milk, but they should know the donor and there is special contract and many other complicated issue. Okay, follow supplementation evidence. We should follow the new researches, or why should follow? We should do some researches. Why not to act with those researches? Why not our own researches? We can achieve this our own researches. يعني they can have support and work in union. We can reach and we can improve the benefit. يعني نحن we believe that it will be recommended someday and soon. Okay, I think we can use this talk about the lactoferrin as a powerful educational tool for convincing family and supporting mom for breastfeeding support. So by understanding the lactoferrin reinforces the importance of supporting breastfeeding whilst highlighting the need for continued research into optimal supplementation strategies for infant without success mother-own milk. By knowing all of that, I think it's worth dying for, fighting for support of breast milk and breastfeeding, isn't it? This is my question. And lastly, this is my lovely Darna city after the Hurricane Danielle. هي كطائر الفينيق والحمد لله رب العالمين. Darna is back. Sorry, هذا وادي درنا اللي تعرض للكثير. الآن تم إعادة إحيائها وتنظيمها بهذه Derna Valley. Okay, and this is Lu'lu'a Derna Bean Hotel 7 Stars Hotel, and this is the port here. And this Sahaba Mosque, one of the oldest mosque in Derna city. هذه مكتبة الملك الصالح الملك إدريس السنوسي ما زالت تم إعادة تأهيلها بهذه library here. And this is the درنا amusement park ومدينة الملاهي الحديثة في مدينة درنا. وهذا كورنيش درنا اللي بطول حوالي 7 كيلومتر. أتمنى إن شاء الله تزورونا في مدينتنا الحبيبة. And thank you very much والحمد لله رب العالمين.
شكرا
دكتورة
جزيلا
هاجر.
دكتور عبد اللطيف.
Yes.
كل
محاضرة
الشكر
رائعة.
دكتور. تفضل دكتور.
تفضلي يا دكتور.
كل الشكر والتقدير دكتور بروفيسور عبد اللطيف على المحاضرة القيمة والممتعة اللي كانت فعلا إضافة علمية جميلة لنا جميعا. استفدنا من هذا الطرح المميز. بارك الله فيك في علمك، وضويت لنا على موضوع مهم جدا جدا اللي هو البريست فيدنج أو الرضاعة الطبيعية. فأنا حابة بس إن ندير هايلايت على بعض النقاط المهمة في محاضرتك. أنا قريت تو ساينتفك بيبر، واحدة في الاثنين في 2026، واحدة تحكي على determinant of human milk lactoferrin concentration في الدراسة اندرت في بنغلاديش. حكت على تركيز اللاكتوفيرين في الأمهات إن هو متغير على حسب احتياجات الطفل. يعني مثلا الأطفال اللي هم في أول مراحل المبكرة من الرضاعة نلقوا أن اللاكتوفيرين قوي جدا أو نسبة تركيزها قوي أكثر ويبدأ
نعم.
يتغير مع مرور
نعم.
الولادة.
نعم.
كذلك الأمهات اللي هن ولدات بريتيرم أو خدج،
مم.
اللي هن تركيز اللاكتوفيرين أعلى، الحالة الغذائية للأم حتى هي لها تأثير.
نعم.
النتائج هذا يخلنا نفكروا إن الإديوكيشن مهم جدا للأمهات، إن نفهموهم إن حليب الأم يتكيف بيولوجيا مع الرضاعة احتياجات الطفل الطبيعية أو المناعية. فهذه رسالة لجميع الأطباء. وممكن المحاضرة حتنشر على الفيديو على اليوتيوب، وحتنشر على صفحات المؤثرين. فمهم إن نبينوا لهم إن اللاكتوفيرين يتكيف مع حاجة الطفل، وضرورة الرضاعة من أول دقائق الولادة، لدوره اللي هو مضاد للبكتيريا، مضاد للفيروس، مضاد للسبسس بصفة عامة. وزي ما قلت حضرتك إنه هو البروتين الريد بروتين اللي هو الارتباط بالحديد. في ساينتفك بيبر ثانية رائعة جدا جدا، ونوهت عليها حضرتك في كلامك على السينرجيتس اكشن اوف ذا لاكتوفيرين، دوره مع ارتباطه مع الهيومن ميلك اوليجوساكرايد مع اللاكتوفيرين اللي سبحان الله موجود فقط.
نعم.
الدور هذا ممكن شركات الأدوية حاولت إن هي توصل لهذا التناغم ما بين الهيومن ميلك اوليجوساكرايد مع اللاكتوفيرين. حاولوا ان هم مثلا ياخذوا في البوفين لاكتوفيرين مع انواع محدوده من هيومن ميلك اوليجوساكرايد، لكن ال الكمية الوحيدة اللي هي أكثر من 200 نوع من هيومن ميلك أوليجوساكرايد مع لاكتوفيرين مع اي جي اي مع خلايا مناعية مع انزيمات ومضادات للميكروب، الوحيد التركيبة هذه موجودة في حليب الأم. فيا ريت ان من منطلق محاضره حضرتك والرسائل اللي هن في كل ملتقى مع الاطباء ان مع الامهات يوروهم ان التناغم هذا مش موجود في اي، ولا حاولوا اكبر الشركات انه يوصلوا له، مستحيل يوصلوا له. وشكرا دكتور، وباب النقاش مفتوح لجميع الزملاء.
نعم. any question please. ممكن الشات بوكس، ما مش عارف يعني إذا كان في أسئلة في الشات بوكس يا دكتورة. فيه دكتورة مروة يحيى. أما كلير صوتي واضح والله؟
واضح دكتور، واضح.
الدكتورة مروة يحيى تسأل هل يمكن استخدامه في حالات العدوى الفيروسية والبكتيرية. هو روتيني not يعني there is a lot of trial a lot of evidence base، لكن by guidelines they're still يعني still under development. لكن ثبت نجاحه في كثير منها، وبدليل انه جرب اثناء حالات الكوفيد انفكشن found to be effective as adjuvant therapy. Of course it is not alone but have a great minimize the mortality and morbidity, minimize the cytokine storms for the viruses. and الآن trial for wound healing يعني حتى في resistant bacteria والنسوكوميال infection found to be effective. لكن مشكلتهم الآن في الدوزز. تعرفوا ان في some other plant sources for lactoferrin apart from the human being، يعني فيها ممكن الآن يحاولوا يطلعوه من plant derivatives found to in many plants and seafoods كذلك، والإيج وايتس كذلك، والبوتريز كذلك الدواجن. فهو يوجد بكميات وجههم، بس الآن طريقة تحضيره يعني في إشكالية في التحضير، فهو يتأثر كذلك بعد في الهاي دو في الهاي ديجري اوف تمبرتشر فور sterilization. لكن لقيوا ان الفرمنتيشن كان هيلب اند without efficacy. فالوت في ستادي بصراحة هو المجال لا يتسع للكثير من الحديث. أنا حاولت ننوه نعطي فكرة بس للانطلاق في هذا الموضوع. وانا الايميل بتاعي موجود، يعني اي حد تواصل عن معلومات اضافيه اكثر ready to answer يعني. حنشوف اذا كان في اي حد اخر من
دكتورة
الاخوه.
مروة تسأل على التركيز بس. التركيز
التركيز
موجود
التركيز في الوطن العربي لا اعتقد انه افيلبل. سالت عليه ان يو كي and in Italy I found this available، لكن هنا ما زال ما وصلنا. ممكن لا زال يشتغل على البوفاين فورم، فهو يستعملوا فيه في الاثليتكس، يستعملوا فيه از نيوتريشنال سبلمنتس. اوكي. في البعض حتى يقول لك ممكن يعطوا حتى اثناء البريجنسي، لكن a lot of debates about. فالكونسنتريشن الدوزز اللي يعطوا فيهن ديفر، ان في تابلت وفي كبسول وفي ليكويد وفي باودر. لكن هم اللي بريزيومينج adult dose يقولوا between 100 to 1000 gram per day. Okay. And even more in some cases, especially in حالة الألزهايمر Parkinsonism and for anti-cancerous effect, anti-carcinogenic effect. And for in infants هم يعطوا فيهم من 50 إلى 200 جرام بير داي. لكن still the exact dose still an area of debate. This is why ما فيش established clear established guidelines. لكن a lot of study run away. نحن away. الدكتوره قالت لك في 2026 many study. هم الان اكتشفوا ان ال great role of this is beyond the nutrition. and اكتشفوا شوفوا في كل all the aspects start from a neonatal period till elderly stage, late adulthood and elderly stage. ف it is with a great function, a great value. Sure ان closely and soon we will hear guidelines how to use it after established. طبعا انتم عارفين الجايدلاينز ويظهر بعد stages of testing. We don't know on which stage they are now عشان to be recommended by FDA and the others organization responsible for that. Okay. ما انا مانيش عارف، انا لم ارى التركيبه
الليكويد.
بتاعت دخل ليبيا، انا ما شفتش ولا سمعت ان حتى في مؤتمرات ثانيه في الجزائر وكذلك في دول ثانيه ان حد ذكر انه هو available. لكن اذا كان available in Europe of course it will be here يعني. لكن how to use it and whether we are legally can we use it unless إن we have يعني evidence based guidelines either national or international. You can depend on يعني. But till now it is safe. Even the side effect in high doses apart from the some allergic reactions in adults like skin rashes, eczema, urticaria, and some gastric upset, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. And for the drug interaction, no known drug interaction till now. In spite, even in large doses given, more than 1000 gram per day, but this is يعني, need to be tested statistically and done a long run study to see the remote effect of those to say this is safe dose or not.
Any question?
Ready. I'm in love with lactoferrin in any way. Any question, I'm ready. Okay.
ثانك يو دكتور، أمتعتنا وشلتنا في رحلة علمية وخيال إلى درنا، وربي يحفظكم في أمان الله إن شاء الله.
تسمحي لي بكلمة أخيرة دكتورة هاجر بس لو سمحت.
تفضل تفضل، الوقت كله لك يا دكتور.
أنا لا أعرف المرحوم السيد الدكتور ثروت دراز إذا كان نطقت الاسم بصورة صحيحة، لكن ماذا بين هذا العبد وربه يعني ليتحدث طبيب من هنا وطبيب من هناك، وهذه صدقته الجارية بعون الله. نسأل الله العظيم رب العرش الكريم أن يتقبله قبولا حسنا ويحشره في الجنة مع الأولياء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. في النهاية نشكركم مرة ثانية، وأنا استمتعت جدا بصراحة بوجودي معكم. وأقول وأختم قولي بعون الله: سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك، وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
شكرا جزيلا يا دكتور، وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.